Now I'd like to introduce our last guest speaker for this panel, John Dugdale. So John is the Technical Director of Golden Deeps and is a geologist with 35 years experience in Australia, Asia and now Africa, and a Fellow of the AusIMM. John has an established track record of discovery, initially with WMC, then with MPI Mines. He also has a broad range of corporate experience, including as Managing Director of several junior resource companies focused on battery metals and gold discovery and development. John is the CEO of Golden Deeps, a company with high-grade copper-silver drilling targets and vanadium, copper, lead and zinc development projects in Namibia. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Christy. The first slide. Am I pressing the right button? The green button? I could hold up my presentation. Have we got some action down there? Well, I might as well start. The technology will just have to keep up. So we're focused in Namibia. Our focus is vanadium as well as copper, lead, zinc. How are we going?
Just tell a couple of jokes.
Oh, well, I was going to, but I need the pictures to tell it. That's a picture of a kudu in the Atavi mountain land of Namibia. Very attracted to our copper samples, so I think it's actually a copper sniffing kudu, which we should use in our exploration programs from now on. How are we going, technical team? Ah, right. There's the copper sniffing kudu. Still not doing much? Oh, here we go. So, ASX listed Golden Deeps. Our focus is high-grade vanadium with copper, lead and zinc as a short-term development project or near-term development project. And in parallel with that, we're looking at high-grade copper-silver exploration, and we're currently diamond drilling as we speak. High-grade battery metals projects. We're in the northern part of Namibia, in the Atavi mountain land, or as I like to call it, the Atavi copper belt. It's essentially the other side of the Kalahari copper belt to the south, on the other side of the basin. But except we're in shallower water sediments, mostly carbonates, so we tend to have higher grade deposits, not quite as extensive. A key example of what's been mined here in the past is the Nosib mine, which produced 30 million tonnes at 4.3% copper, 10% lead and 3.5% zinc, so that would be quite a prize. Our projects, as you can see from the map there, are located to the southeast of Nosib, but in the same rock formations, the same carbonate units. But we have two types of targets. One is a shallower level vanadium type of mineralisation, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. That also has copper, lead and zinc associated with it, but that's confined to a particular mineral called disclosite, which gravity concentrates up very readily. So we have resources for vanadium at Abenab, and we're putting together a resource on a new discovery at Nosib, which I'll talk about in a moment. And that's being integrated into a scoping study, which we're looking to step forward into a pre-feasibility study stage by the end of the year. In parallel with that, we're drilling for repeats of the exceptionally high-grade Nosib Springs copper-silver mine, or deposit, which produced 300,000 tonnes at 10% copper and nearly 600 grams per tonne silver, only closing about 20 years ago. We think we've located the offset extension of that deposit, and we're also looking at repeats within 5 kilometre corridor that we've identified. And that's where we're diamond drilling at the moment. So in a bit more detail, the Abenab mine is the highest grade vanadate deposit in the world. It's quite an unusual ore type. It's vanadium plus or minus copper, lead and zinc in a secondary mineral, and this is a piece of it here. Now, I have been known to throw rocks at the audience if they don't pay attention, but I'll not do that at this time. So we have a resource at Abenab of around 2.8 million tonnes at a relatively low cut-off of 0.2% vanadium, at 0.66% V2O5, just over 2% lead and about 1% zinc. That's inferred resource at this stage, although we have done some further drilling, and we're also doing further testing on that ore type to look to generate the same sort of high-grade gravity concentrates that have been produced in the past. And we're targeting up to 20% V2O5, 14% zinc and 53% or 50% lead in concentrate as a primary product from the mine site. But in addition to that, we've also been looking at downstream processing to take that gravity concentrate and through hydrometallurgical leaching produce high-value vanadium products that can then be fed into the vanadium redox flow battery stream. In addition to that, we would then be able to produce copper, lead and zinc byproducts from that process. So it's very high-value material, readily concentratable on site, and we're now at the relatively advanced stages of test work, moving through the scoping study stage into the pre-feasibility study stage by the end of the year for an integrated project development. The other part of that integrated project development is the Nosib discovery. So Nosib is an outcropping copper, vanadium, lead with a bit of zinc and a bit of silver deposit. It's really two ore bodies in one. The deeper parts of the deposit are a primary copper-silver deposit, strata-bound across approximately 50 metres of conglomerate and arenite, quite an unusual style in this part of the world, which really opens up quite a strike length of opportunities because the host unit, the Nosib formation, is not very well exposed. So that's a target longer term for strata-bound, potentially bulk tonnage underground copper-silver deposits. But our near-term focus is the overprinting ore body, if you like, with vanadium, secondary lead and secondary copper associated with it, which is really an open pit, goblet-shaped ore body above the base of oxidation. So we've announced this year intersections including 53.5 metres at 1.15% copper, 0.6% V2O5, 3.5% lead and 4.6 grams per tonne silver. And that's effectively only a little bit over true width and from surface. So this is going to be a very straightforward open pit prospect. We've got resource estimation happening as we speak, and we should be coming out with something relatively soon. And then the next steps, we'll be looking at optimisation of that open pit, completion of gravity concentrate test work, which we've already commenced from a bulk sample from the site and from drill core. And then we'll look to integrate a second stage of test work using the flow sheet developed for Abenab to look at hydrometallurgical leaching. So this is the second part really of an integrated project, producing vanadium concentrate on site with the copper, lead and zinc associated with it, and then taking it another step, probably off-site, to hydrometallurgical processing to produce these high-grade vanadium intermediate products. And we also see that further exploration potential, not only at Nosib at depth for these bulk tonnage type copper-silver deposits, but also along strike, where we really have probably 20, maybe 30 kilometres of strike of this host unit that really hasn't been tested. Now for the really exciting stuff. The Nosib Springs deposit was found very late in the piece in the exploration phase that Goldfields were undertaking in the area in the late 1990s. And it was sold to the operators of the Nosib mine and effectively raped and pillaged to produce 300,000 tonnes at 10% copper and around 584 grams per tonne silver. So quite spectacular, very discreet, It's really only about 60 metres strike length, like a plunging cigar, and the mine essentially stopped when that deposit hit an offsetting fault. Now, we've done a bit of structural modelling to determine that we think the whole thing has just been dropped down on a normal fault, and some of the previous drilling has probably just intersected the fingernail, if you like, up to 12% copper. So we're now drilling, we're about halfway down the first hole to intersect in the vicinity of some of the previous mineralisation that was intersected, but then continue all the way through the fault and drill to the other side, and hopefully hit significant widths of high-grade mineralisation. But even if we don't quite hit the jackpot, we'll be doing downhole electromagnetics to determine where those sulphide bodies are going. But this is an example of drilling where the ore body is, not necessarily just fiddling around on the surface. And the discovery of this sort of prize, even just one of these repeats, would be a real company maker for Golden Deeps. But in addition to the potential to look for the offset of that deposit, we've got 5 kilometres of strike potential, which Nosib Springs is essentially in the middle of, that really hasn't had much testing at all. As I say, Goldfields really only discovered this in the last legs of their exploration program. So there wasn't a lot of work that penetrated to any significant depth. And Nosib Springs was actually a blind discovery. So we're currently laying out loops for moving loop electromagnetics along that 5 kilometre strike length, and we're very optimistic that we'll be able to pick up further conductors and essentially find the other 4 fingers, or maybe the other 9, depending on whether you want to hold up both hands. Outside of Africa, we've got copper gold exploration in New South Wales, and we've also got some cobalt exploration properties in Canada. So we're very much focused in the battery metals space. So why is Golden Deeps a good bet? As I said, we've got high-grade battery metals projects, principally copper and vanadium in Namibia. We're very well established in a prime location. The Otavi copper belt, as I call it, is really a world-class terrain for major discoveries. And really, Nosib Springs is the only deposit that has been found that's actually blind. And that's really our bread and butter. The track record that we've got in our group is really finding these deeper deposits that may not be very big, but you've just got to understand the geology and target them properly. We've got key battery metals to produce from our near-term development project, focused on the Abenab vanadium resource, an underground development project in the offing, the thick high-grade copper vanadium lead mineralisation at Nosib, which is essentially an open pit-shaped ore body, and we'll be integrating that through our scoping study and then moving into pre-fees and then moving to establish mining leases as soon as we possibly can. But in addition to that, we'll continue to target these high-grade copper-silver deposits, maybe with a bit of lead and zinc, wherever they occur. The Nosib mine has already got an existing decline, so even if we find something that starts at 400 metres, we've already got a head start. We've got a management team with a strong track record of discovery, particularly in these type of brownfields environments, and we're very optimistic that we'll be able to make a go of not only our near-term development options, but also our discovery program. Thank you very much.